Hello, my friends. It's 10 Minute Tuesday time. Today's topic is hard things, suffering, problems. That's a big part of life. In fact, it's a very central part of life, and our capacity to handle hard things, suffering, and problems without letting them destroy us, diminish us, make us shut up, go home, give up, really does determine the quality and the effectiveness of our lives. So it's really, really important. Our mindset when it comes to problems, though, is part of the problem. Often I can imagine that if I just get through this problem, then it's plain sailing from here. And I get a bit dramatic sometimes when things get hard. I was dramatic over this weekend, to be honest. You ask my wife and kids. I didn't cope well with the heat. It was particularly hot. We don't have air conditioning, and I suffered. I suffered, but I didn't want to be suffering. I thought I was going to die. And I just thought to myself, look, if I could be cold right now, that would be heaven. I would never complain about another thing ever again. What I would give to be cold right now. Cold, that'd be bliss. I'd be so happy if I was cold. Anyway, this morning I was at a coffee shop early doing some writing. I was just distracted. Someone left the window open. It was bloody freezing. Just couldn't concentrate. It was terrible. If it's not one thing, it's another thing. And this is really important to actually be clear about the fact that life is suffering, but that suffering is meaningful. And to get your head around that's really cool. I love this from Mark Manson. His book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Flying, it's an incredible book. It's so cool. Wisdom. I really love the wisdom in this book. Page 85. Hear this. If you haven't read the book, if you have read the book, you might be familiar with this passage. Here it is. In the long run, completing a marathon makes us happier than eating a chocolate cake. Raising a child makes us happier than beating a video game. Starting a small business with friends while struggling to make ends meet makes us happier than buying a new computer. These activities are stressful, arduous, and often unpleasant. They also require withstanding problem after problem. Yet they are some of the most meaningful moments and joyous things we will ever do. They involve pain, struggle, even anger and despair. Yet once they are accomplished, we will look back and get all misty-eyed telling our grandkids all about them. As Freud once said, one day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. So there are three things that have been useful for me and could be useful for you in terms of thinking about the struggle and why suffering is such a central theme. The first thing is to frame your expectations around suffering. So there's a Buddhist idea that says we suffer when things are different than we expect, that when they're other than we expect. So if you expect something to be easy, when you find it's hard, you will suffer. If you expect things to be hard when you find this hard, it'll still be hard, but you won't experience the suffering to the same degree. So to understand that a meaningful life is a life built with suffering, that we want the hard thing. We look back at the hard things as the things we remember. You actually don't want to get out of problems. You don't want life to be easy. That's not what you're looking for. That is not happiness. There is no joy down that road. So the second thing then is to be clear about what you actually want to be suffering for, what it is that you want and what you're willing to be doing about it. Another great quote from the book says, who you are is defined by what you are willing to struggle for. So what are the things that are meaningful and important, that are worth the energy, the pain, the suffering? What do you want when it's all said and done? What do you want your life to be about? The moment you lose sight of that, then suffering gets very meaningless, and you do fall into a pit, and it's hard to get out. The way to continue to survive in the midst of hard things is to know why you are suffering and to actually set the course for that, rather than letting someone else direct that. It's to you decide. If things are going to be hard anyway, I may as well choose hard that's meaningful. And third is to commit to improvement. So if you continue to operate at the same level of consciousness and growth, you don't learn anything or you don't improve anywhere, well, you'll continue to suffer the same that you always do. Your problems won't improve. You won't find a way through. The aim of the game is to move through this problem so that you can earn a higher quality problem. And you only do that by improving your skill level, by learning more, by growth, by committing, by intending to get better, to get bigger. So if that's not a part of your strategy for life, then this whole thing comes crashing down as well. So when thinking about the insecurity problem, to me, this is actually a really low level problem. It is a kindergarten problem. And that's not to judge you if that's the problem that you're solving right now, but it's not even really the big game problem. It's the problem keeping you away from the real problem. Because if insecurity is intact inside you, it causes you to keep running away. It causes you to feel like you don't have what it takes to deal with life. So you need to keep playing it small. You deal with insecurity and you realize you have what it takes to deal with whatever life throws at you, and you keep earning higher quality problems. You keep having a more meaningful life. You keep having more of an impact on those around you. You keep contributing out of your capacity to handle greater suffering, more meaningful suffering. So, it just kind of raises the stakes and the need for us to actually overcome insecurity, not let it remain the thing that holds us back from life. So it can be overcome. I'm convinced it's just like any problem. All you need is the proven framework and someone skillful enough to hold you in the space until it works. The mission around the Insecurity Project is to end the unnecessary suffering. The unnecessary suffering. There is necessary suffering, but insecurity is unnecessary suffering. It's suffering that doesn't even make sense. It's suffering built on a lie. So let's find a way through. That's the intention. You're going to be okay. There's a way. So if you haven't already taken the test to find out where insecurity is costing you the most, to kind of escalate your awareness of the fact that this is a problem and it is an important one, and it's holding you back from meaningful problems, more meaningful suffering, more meaningful life. Take the test on my website to find out where it's costing you the most across 5 key indicators: your health, your finances, your relationship, your happiness, and one of the others that I can't remember. If you've done that, then go download the 7 essential practices for overcoming insecurity. So work out what the framework is, discover the path. If you've done that, go reach out for help. Go find someone skillful enough to hold you in the space. Go find someone who can create an objective and clean conversation that doesn't confuse everyone about who the hero in the story is, who's not going to get in the way of you doing the work you need to do. And let's go on to bigger and better problems. Let's have insecurity in the rear vision mirror so that we can go be all that we can be. I hope that's useful. I always enjoy our conversations, and I'll speak to you again next week.